get it. Charlie, how much do you think we're actually going to be able to operate the software today?
Well, we have new Boomer approved software, as you just said. So it's not going to be like a 7-screen death march. It's gonna work this way. Okay, I'm gonna send this to you.
I think this could actually work.
It could. Our names are now at the bottom, so that's huge improvement from before.
We're already up 100% on last week.
It's like career ending. That the first stream was like literally like if you didn't have faith in like tech journalism before, like you lose it all in that moment. It's just horrible.
Yeah, we needed some practice before that last one, but this one's going to be amazing. I have total faith. Be great. So Charlie, like, for while we wait for people to come into the stream, like, what are we doing here?
Okay, so you and I, we work at the same place. We write about similar stuff. We are always talking in Slack, and we're always just trying to like kind of, process the crap that we see, and like we're having a lot of like really tangent conversations that aren't like perfect for like a blog post or anything really. Like, I don't even think you'd put it necessarily in a podcast, but it is real, and I think we wanted to like have an outlet for that, because like we're always on the internet. We're like way too online, and we need therapy. So this is therapy, right? This is therapy.
Yeah. Who pays the copay?
I think I want to leave our employer out of it for the time being. So I think we just have this, but no, I mean, this is just like, we were talking earlier that there's a whole group of people who like create content online in this like super reactive, like really like kind of like low stakes, casual way. And then like we are often commenting on that content in the most formal way possible. And it's just like headline, like nut graph. And in reality, it's like, this is the kind of medium that I feel like I want for these conversations. I don't know. What do you think?
I desperately need to talk to you about the stuff that we see on the internet, because otherwise it stays bottled up inside me all day, and then it pops up like years later in a nightmare. And so I want to just be able to like process in real time with you, my friend and colleague. And also I want to talk to like our friends who are cool and interesting and write great things. Chad is saying, please do a nut graph on your Twitch stream. Okay, the nut graph on our Twitch stream is we are tech reporters. We have brainworms from the internet, and we are going to work through that in real time because we do this and we want to talk to people, and we've got some good guests on the horn today. And we even have new software to show off our new show title. Should I let it rip?
Let her rip.
All right. Boom! Infinite Scroll, an internet show about stuff.
Yeah.
That's TK. We're gonna revise that one, but
the art department hasn't been over it yet, so we have to.
Yeah, none of this has been done by professionals. Okay, so. We're so professional this week that we even have an agenda, which I will pull up now in our Google Doc. Let's give that a little spotlight. Oh. So our agenda, wow, that's beautiful.
The screen share, I have to say, beautiful. This is leaps and bounds from where we were 2 days ago. Like, truly.
Yeah, I'm beside myself. Last time was like, it was really, really bad. So, okay, new agenda. Item 1, our new name, Infinite Scroll, done.
Fantastic.
Item number 2 is something that you put in there, which is something that you want to show me.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna this is gonna be horrible, isn't it?
No.
Is this gonna ruin my life?
It is horrible in a not in the way that you think. Like, it's very It's peculiar. Have you seen this, first of all? This is
No.
Okay.
I have no idea what you're going to show me.
So what this is I go up to the top to the pinned tweet. This is just a person, and again, I'm not trying to this isn't there's no harassment or anything happening. This is just simply this is public. Anyone can access this. But look at the pinned tweet, which says, "This is my first tweet after 6 years, a little about me." So their name. I've been in a coma from 2014 to 2018 after an elevator accident. I spent 2018 to 2020 in rehab, now free to acclimate society. Bear with me. That is just an extremely fascinating thing to begin with. But
yeah, what is this for real?
That's what I don't fully know.
Is this Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, but on Twitter?
I stumbled upon this yesterday, and I cannot tell if it's performance art or if it's a big joke or if it's real or what. If anyone who's watching has any clue whatsoever,
okay,
please tell me. But if you go through, there's just weird stuff. Like one of them was today I'm going to learn about 2017. And it's going through the Wikipedia page entry for
wait. Okay, we need to go through this thread. Okay, so hello, this is my first tweet for 6 years, and then the thread keeps going. While I was in rehab, I only had Netflix, which I watched sparingly because I spent a lot of time sleeping and doing physical therapy. How many tweets? Is this 100 tweets?
They have 265 tweets.
No. Is this thread 100 tweets?
Oh.
No. Okay. It's like a dozen tweets. Okay. So can you give me the nut graph of this tweet storm? I can't believe I just said those words, but go for it.
Horrible words to say. I mean, it's a lot of stuff about who they are, and this person says also that they have they're recovering mentally and physically in all sorts of ways from this thing, which may or may not be whatever. I'm very careful here because part of what is fascinating is the reaction, which is I woke up from a nap to people claiming this is fake. I really hope nothing I've ever experienced happens to you. It was very traumatic. I'm not here to gain anything out of it other than answering questions for anyone who is ever curious about the coma experience. And I've seen a lot of arguing about this and people just furious and people saying this is so fake, this is so stupid. And it's kind of just carving my mind in half right now because I don't know if
this
it's
is
real.
An amazing reply. So the first question somebody asked obviously is Trump, what is it like to wake up to Trump? And Valerie says, I'm still going through Japanese news, but I did read a little bit on the US presidency. It's interesting seeing the law that anyone born in the US after 35, maybe I need to read more about his presidency. All right. I'm we need to get this person on the stream. Can we get the, all right, I'm following them, and we need to figure out how to get them on the stream because I need to this is your story about the people who were rafting when coronavirus hit and they came back from their how many days was it? A 20-day rafting trip?
Yes, it was 21 days and they didn't know the coronavirus happened or anything had happened, and they were summarily horrified. This is my favorite genre of story, which the Rip Van Winkle thing, right? People just wake up and whatever. But what is so fascinating about this is if it's not real, if it is performance art or a troll or whatever, it's also trying to get people to argue against someone who has been hurt and injured and then take the point of that victim. However you slice this, it's pretty bonkers. And I just want to know what's real.
This is a great performance art. I'm on team fake, but again, I feel bad saying that because you're right. Embedded in this thread is I don't want to have my experience invalidated. I clearly don't want to invalidate someone's experience if they actually have been in a coma, which is awful.
Right. Exactly. It's a real precarious freaking situation right now.
Wow.
I know.
Wow. Okay. This is going on my people I need to have on the stream list.
Yeah. If anyone has,
yeah,
clue.
chat, please help us understand what's going on here. Um,
Well,
So,
okay,
okay.
wait. So someone just replied to the thing. Who wakes up from a coma? Tweets they just woke up from a coma. That's the least believable part. Yes, but according they were in a coma and got out. I think right in 2018, and then right,
Yeah.
and then spent the rest of that the 2 years like
Yeah, and then we're in rehab.
convalescing, and then like okay, I'm gonna kind of like join the internet again. Again, I don't know where I fall. I'm basically afraid to say that it's performance art. Like that's
Yeah,
where
I'm not going to be the guy who goes out on a limb and says like this is totally fake. But I'm conditioned to believe that everything interesting on the internet is in some way fake. So let's put that one on pause for a second because we have more to get to. Let's skip this one. You know what? We're going to do Crowd Tangle another day because I want to talk to Lily. Tell me about Lily, and then let's send her the link, and then we can.
I need the link 1 second so that I can send. So Slack me the link. Okay, so Lily is a staff writer at Slate. She is fantastic. She writes about kind of everything, but also like frequently about sort of like internet culture and stuff. She had a really phenomenal piece a little while ago on like the whole cancel culture thing and the idea of like basically people are just mad at like the fact that like people are on Twitter. And that there's like so many, basically it's an idea of like, there's too much opinion. So people are mad at that. And it was just a really great distillation. But the reason I wanted to have her talk to us is because she wrote a great piece about QAnon on last week, I think, and about QAnon and its prominence with women. But like embedded inside the piece is actually just like some of the best analysis that I've seen on the topic, and just like a really good understanding of the psyche of like what is driving people to conspiracy theories, what is driving people to Q, but at this moment too, like what it says and how it's ordering the world specifically, not just like when I write about it, I feel like I've said like, oh, you know, it gives people purpose, it gives people an order to it. She has found a way to like drill down a little bit, I think like a little notch deeper. So I'm going to try to get her on this right now.
Yeah, try to get her on this. I mean, this has been one of the most fascinating narratives for me in the past couple of months. Is just like watching the like cultural shift in QAnon, because it used to be, I feel like, a bunch of like message board dudes, and now it's like very, very popular with women. So I think Lily's here. Should we bring Lily in?
Throw her in.
Lily, hello.
Hey.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you guys too.
Thanks for coming to our goat rodeo here.
Yeah, this is wow. Okay, so this is like I've never done this before. This is fascinating. Okay,
you're live on the internet. So I have so many questions for you, and I'm sure Charlie does too. But I want to just like pull up your article for a second because I think we should give people, like, ground people a little bit in what we're talking about here. So this is your story about why QAnon took off with women this summer. We've talked about, you know, QAnon theory, conspiracy theory isn't just spreading, it's evolving. Women are sort of taking over this movement. It's popping up on Peloton forums, circulating among Instagram influencers, and gaining traction with anti-vaxxers, yoga communities, and new moms. So can you just like sort of summarize for us like what is happening culturally with the Women for QAnon movement?
That's the only appropriate response, by the way.
Yeah. So my best guess from looking at the stuff that I looked at is that there are already like a few kind of subcultures, right, that have tendencies to be a little bit anti-science, you know, the anti-vaxxer community, whatever, like wellness community sometimes kind of like can engage in a little woo that maybe helps people become a little bit more receptive to this stuff. And my theory is that a lot of those folks are used to a lot of engagement and a lot of like positive interactions online that I think some of them aren't able to have, partly as a function of the pandemic, and B, that, I mean, what I eventually came up with was, I'm just calling it the normalcy fetish for lack of anything better to call it, which is that I think that there is a not insignificant part of the population that does not actually register, COVID-19 and the attendant precautions as the crisis that they are. And I think that's partly because COVID-19 is invisible. We're not seeing the people dying. They're dying off stage in hospital rooms alone. We're not seeing the funerals. We're not seeing any of the kind of observances that would make it visible. And so people who have lost a lot, I think, are primed to be really angry that they've lost what they have, and desperate to basically not believe that things are as bad as they appear to be, and they want things to be normal. And so paradoxically, that has led them to embrace a theory that there is a satanic cult raping children. That's a weird twist, but I think it makes a little bit of sense, strangely, just because I think, the thing that drives us all crazy, I think, about COVID-19, right, is that nobody really knows what to do. We're not sure if the sacrifices that we're making are really going to be worth it. It doesn't seem like, it seems like people are sacrificing a huge amount, but because there does not appear to be a plan, there's no payoff. And so it's kind of an amorphous, horrible, ongoing debate about what the right thing to do is, whether it's for small businesses, whether it's to keep people, from getting sick. And so I think the satanic cult thing basically made right and wrong really clear. And rather than kind of having to tolerate ambient chaos where nobody seems to be in charge, and where the president himself says one thing one day and a different thing the other, you can instead have this really happy illusion that there is an organized set of bad guys and an equally organized set of good guys who are working really hard to take them down. I guess I can pause there.
Yeah, go ahead, Charlie.
I just, the normalcy fetish thing to me was so, it made so much sense. I was saying to Kevin earlier, right before you joined, so many people are saying about this, it's like normal conspiracy theories in the sense that, it makes sense of the world. It's a way to, rally around community, et cetera. But right now, it's, what's so fascinating, I never personally made the link to say, of course it's just for people who just can't stare at this. When you've sort of reached maximum capacity, this is a way to sort of stop using all the memory in your brain. It's just kind of like a governor cap. It just keeps you from doing what I think a lot of us have done, which is fall into despair. It's really hard to keep up with this. And that's what I think is so smart about how you put it together, is that it's actually a way to sort of preserve your sanity by going insane.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It reminds me a little bit of the Kony 2012 movement. I don't know if you guys remember that, but the sort of the kind of virtuous social media community that popped up to support that, or the Ice Bucket Challenge, or something that's performatively virtuous on social media. It kind of feels for these women, QAnon is kind of filling that space. I don't know. Is that crazy?
No, I don't think that's crazy at all. I think people are, they're ethically desperate, right? And they want to be doing the ring. They want to be fighting for, it's unambiguously good that nobody can get mad at them for. And pedophilia, that cause, nobody can possibly say that you're on the wrong side of that. And I think that is comforting, especially to people who really value order and safety and a universe that ideally would be somewhat aesthetically organized and ethically organized, right? And so, I think it's really sad, because I think, as with a lot of male QAnon, supporters, it's not like this is unique to women. They want to be, they believe themselves to be very good people, right?
Right.
And that's kind of the tragedy. It's a strange conversion you're watching happen in real time to people who who I think very much want some agency and want to be fighting for the right thing, and we have no agency right now. So yeah, it just feels to me like. Sorry, go ahead.
Something that you wrote in the piece that I also thought was like I wanted to hear you say a little bit more about was you talked about how it makes a lot of sense to me that like a lot of the, especially around like COVID and especially around Trump and a lot of like leftist discourse. This is what I'm quoting you now. Leftist discourse on the platforms can have a preacherly aspect that asserts moral truths without giving the listener the option of disagreeing. This can strike the not yet persuaded as condescending, bossy, dismissive. And then QAnon expresses full faith in the reader's abilities to discover the truth, promises a light at the end of the tunnel, appears to invite independent verification and free inquiry. I think that's really like huge. Like I find this as a struggle in like, coming from like a media perspective, which is like, there's a very democracy dies in darkness, like, truth teller kind of thing. And it's like, it's a tough position to meet people at when A, they're already skeptical of you, but B, you're like, it does kind of verge on that, like on a lot of that moralizing. And this is sort of the opposite. I don't know. I just wanted to sort of hear your thoughts on that. It's a terrible question. I know, but
yeah, no, I mean, yeah, I just think it's psychologically brilliant. I mean, I think part of the problem, it is just like, anyone who's taught like knows, right, that there are pedagogical strategies that work better than others, and like there's a reason that lecturing isn't always the best way to instruct. People, I think the thrill of QAnon. I'm just going to pause and say, like, I think that people really need to feel like they are being trusted to form independent judgments. Like, I think the conversions happen from that place, and I think that it is an unfortunate artifact of the moment that we're living through, that like a lot of the ways that discussions are being held right now, I think, are triggering quite literally like a lot of people to feel, like they're being dismissed or that they just are being deprived of the right. This is what the whole cancel culture stupid thing is about too, at its root, right? It's like people want to feel like they get to like decide for themselves and resent being instructed. And so QAnon is just amazing because like these women on these platforms, when they're reading, are just they post these beautiful videos where they're like, my heart is heavy today. I've discovered something that is just so devastating, and I want you to prepare before you start researching this because it's heavy and it's going to take you a long time to recover. But it's important that we wake up and see the truth, and the faith that they express. They don't have to tell you what it is. It's always vague. It's always, they don't want to like hit you immediately with the satanic, cannibal stuff about pain.
Right, you got to slow roll the satanic cannibal stuff. I mean, I think this idea of like secret knowledge is something that I've been fascinated by, because this was like a lot of the kind of alt-right's original recruiting strategy circa like 2014 was like, the media is telling you one thing, like come to our YouTube channel so we can tell you the real scoop on race science that you're not going to get in your history classes or your newspapers. I wanted to talk to you about the aesthetics of this sort of new feminized QAnon movement. And there's this researcher named Marc-André Argentino who has been collecting what he calls pastel QAnon, which is basically stuff like this. It's like basically it looks like you're advertising like a juice cleanse or like a crystal healing workshop. And then you basically like, you end up like, it really is, it's genius, because if you see this on your Instagram feed, like it looks totally native. Like it looks like a live, laugh, love thing. And you don't really get what it's trying to tell you until you actually start digging in. Like, what have you learned about sort of the aesthetics of sort of feminized QAnon?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that Instagram is like the Instagram discourse is so largely positive also. I think like it's so much about affirmation and like, people supporting each other, that actually aren't great mechanisms for pushing back a ton, especially when the things are packaged seamlessly into a grid that is otherwise about cute little children playing and like a beautiful interior designer's home. And, like it's just like the context collapse is almost hard to detect, right? Because you mostly go to this person for this stuff, and then like one or two little like Rise Up references like sneak in, and you're not sure what it is, but you're like, hey, I support you generally. And anyway, I will say that the one instance of interesting disagreement that I found was like on how this was expressing on some anti-vaxxer Instagrams, where they were genuinely torn. Like they're definitely very curious. And one such person, I'm not going to say who was the user, but put up a video of Trump talking about the vaccine, saying that she wanted to hear a discussion about it, and she was pretty clearly implying that that Trump was really slyly bolstering the anti-vax movement by promising a vaccine that no Americans who support other vaccines would trust or want to take. In other words, like this is one of his covert moves, is to like actually make anti-vaxxing attitudes like mainstream, and also convert all of the people who will reflexively hate anything Trump says into effectively anti-vaxxers. But there was pushback in the comments. Like there were people saying, how can you possibly say trust the plan if this is the plan, a vaccine is coming? So like there are occasions when like I think two somewhat marginal agendas collide and there is an opportunity for some dissent, but by and large I think that like the aesthetic project is a little bit hard to fight with, and they're also very quick to police it. They're like, please don't be negative on my page, like if somebody
please don't make a scene in this sweet green while you're getting your salad and deep state knowledge.
Sir, this is an Arby's where we eat children. Sure. Lily, thank you so much for joining us. Everyone, we'll drop the link to your article. Actually, Adrian dropped it in here, but people can go read it on Slate. And thank you for
Yeah, thanks for coming
on this journey with
experience.
us. Yeah,
this is fun. Good meeting you both. Bye.
Yeah. Take care.
Take care. All right.
Oh.
Wow.
Charlie,
I am so excited for our next surprise guest.
Well, I am not. I want to go on record.
Wow. We have the man of the moment with us.
I am
Ladies and gentlemen, Casey Newton.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Hello,
you just can't get enough publicity today, can you? You just can't get away from it.
What's the point in using Twitter if you can't use it to self-promote?
Hey, I get it.
Yeah.
Congratulations. You're a billionaire now, right?
I'll have to check the Stripe dashboard, but the early money looked like we were going to become a unicorn within the first few hours. So that was very exciting. And thanks to everyone who signed up.
It's very impressive. It's good though that you'll be covering tech journalism and billionaires as a billionaire on your own yacht. So I think it brings you up to their level, right?
That's the one perspective that's been missing. It's like, what would a second Dr. Manhattan say about another Dr. Manhattan? Like, I want to read that book.
Oh my God. So, okay, let's just start really.
Yeah, this is not going to be a softball interview. Just to let you know, we are bring
the fire.
Here on wait, I got to pop up our new here on Infinite Scroll, an internet show about stuff. We do not mess around.
I like the brand.
So you are in the lion's den now, my friend.
I love it.
So just to give everyone some background, can you tell us what you told the world today? One of the first things I saw when I got out of bed this morning. It was very early. Tell us. Give us the news.
Yeah. So I write a newsletter about big tech and democracy called The Interface. I've been doing it for 3 years, and today I announced I was going to try to spin it out as an independent publication and see if I could do it as a reader-supported effort. So the new thing is called Platformer, and you can find it at Platformer News. It's definitely a continuation of the work I've been doing at the interface. It's going to grow and change and evolve. There are some new things I want to do with it. But yeah, Platformer is the thing.
Wow, Casey,
the elevator pitch is good.
Yeah, it's a good elevator pitch. I gave you $100 this morning,
oh,
so I just want you to know that I am putting my money where my mouth is. We can put the link up here, and everyone should go check that out. But can you tell us sort of what the inspiration for this was? Like, you've been at The Verge for years, for I don't know how many years, 7 years.
Yeah.
So
did you start at the beginning? Like, were you part of the?
It was about 18 months when I joined it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Also, New York Times cover boy today. Wow. Wow. Look at that mug. Oh, it's so dreamy.
New Tinder profile.
It's great.
Yeah.
So, okay, first question, after what gives you the right, is what's gonna change for people what's gonna change about what you do right now?
Yeah. So, I mean, the number one opportunity that this opens up is I get to explore the community now, right? Substack has these features where I can just start a thread and let readers talk and see what they have to say. That's something that I have underexplored in the interface so far, mostly, honestly, just because the platform that I was using didn't enable it. And I think Substack is starting to do some interesting things around community. And because I'm writing in what is frankly a little bit of a niche space, I'm attracting some really great readers who are experts in things like trust and safety, content moderation, developing policies for platforms. And I'm really hoping that I can get those folks to start hashing stuff out and frankly, just give me some new ideas for things to report on. So because the newsletter is going to be so small, it can be this intimate and hopefully generative community that can help shape my reporting. And that's kind of the experiment.
Do you feel like you're going to do you feel like writing a newsletter has changed your writing style? I mean, I sometimes when I'm stuck on a draft or something, I'll actually open up a Gmail window and I'll just pretend that I'm writing an email to a friend because I feel like it helps me get into this sort of conversational writing flow. How do you feel like your writing has changed since you started writing email newsletters?
I think that it has moved me much closer to the center of tech criticism. I think when I started, I was really mad about a lot of stuff, and I still am. But at the same time, because people were initially willing to hear what I have to say, I no longer had to shout to get. I no longer had to shout to get their attention. I could just sort of say, "All right, we all have a shared basis of understanding here. We all agree that Myanmar was really bad for Facebook, but what next, right?" And so instead of just shouting all the time in these sort of twice a week reports, I could just sort of sneak into people's inbox every day. And so the phrase that I have for the work that I do is be a gentle but relentless critic, and both of those words are equally important, right? I need to sneak up on you so you keep listening to me, but also I have to never go away. And I'm convinced if I do those two things, I can push companies to make better decisions around the issues that I care about. And I never would have gotten to that place without writing a newsletter and the kind of format that I feel like email demands.
That's really interesting. And I saw that I think you did an interview with Sarah John, right? And said that the easiest, you noticed the easiest way to get retweets is to say Facebook's bad and send tweet. Very, very trolly and good, but also kind of true. Yeah. But I guess my question is do you think that is the majority, or not the majority? Do you think that's just the dominant theme? Do you think that, especially with Facebook, but in platform world, that it's trended that we're just deep in a rut of just playing for the retweet algorithm right now?
I mean, I really think on that particular subject, yes. Right? I mean, you two are experts and have written some of my favorite coverage about the fact that platforms have incentives, right? And you can just see the Twitter incentive reshaping people's behavior. And again, I'm not here to let Facebook off the hook about anything, but a thing that frustrates me is I feel like people type Facebook is bad into the box. And because they get so many retweets, that becomes an excuse for not thinking through it any further, or not trying to like dig any deeper below the surface, right? Like, I think we can all agree Facebook has some pretty messed up externalities, and like, we're just going to keep exploring those for a long time. But my thing is just, let's say something really specific about that today. And the more specific you get, the more you have to account for other factors. And look, I'm sure that I can be fairly accused of carrying some water for the company at that point. And I think you can open your mind a little too much and sort of let yourself get played. But I don't know. I just think that, ultimately what we're talking about is what should you be able to say on the internet. And I just think that requires like a really careful approach.
I've never tweeted about Facebook, so I don't know what it's like to.
Oh, you should try it.
But I get what you're saying, and I think I definitely see how platform incentives could steer that process.
This is making me rethink my coordinated inauthentic account troll farm that I run. It's really you're ruining my operation right now. So
yeah,
thanks a lot.
I'm gonna start tweeting like obsessively about some random about Triller. Like I'm gonna be like I gotta get on early on the Triller dunk train. I want to talk more about this Substack thing though, because I think this article clearly a lot of the things you've been talking about today are this decision that you made to give what is considered like a very good job in tech journalism, writing features at The Verge and our newsletter. And now you, as of today, like you work for Casey Newton Inc. Like, is that like, tell me about the sort of decisions and the pros and cons that you were weighing as you decided whether or not to leave The Verge to do this newsletter.
Oh, I mean, well, it's super scary. I'm a tremendously risk-averse person. And even though today has gone basically great by like every conceivable standard or metric, like I still just have like a lump in the pit of my stomach. And so I don't know at what point in the entrepreneur's journey that goes away. I hope it's soon. As far as like why I left, look, I've been at The Verge 7.5 years, best job I've ever had, unquestionably one of the greatest jobs in journalism. Vox Media, incredible company to work for. I sort of think they're going to be fine, right? But it's been a weird year, man. I turned 40 like inside this cottage that I live in by myself. I know I'm going to be in it for another 8 or 10 months. My expenses have never been lower. The ad market freaking sucks. And I just started thinking, like, how long have I been looking over my shoulder, wondering if the ad market is going to keep paying for my job, And at the same time, like, what am I going to build in the next 10 years, right? Like, what do I want my contribution to journalism to be? Like, I want it to be the journalism itself, but like, can I get beyond that, right? So when I started talking to Substack, one of my thoughts was, look, like we've lost thousands of journalism jobs this year. You've created this platform that is helping journalists snap their fingers and create a job for themselves. That's really interesting to me. What if you could sort of help match me up with other journalists who are either considering making a move like this or have made a move and want to talk through some things? And let me just sort of be a volunteer mentor. They were super into it. They set it up. And so, my hope is that, at the end of, let's say, 12 months, there will be a number of people who have also started their own Substacks and who've also sort of started to explore this idea of reader-supported journalism. And maybe we can just bring back some tiny fraction of the jobs that have been lost. So you just sort of put those two things together. It's like if my readers will pay my bills for me, and I can help other like journalists kind of get on their feet outside these, kind of two models that we have right now that are just shedding jobs every year, I should try that. So that was
I was really struck by something that was in this article where I think it was one of the founders of Substack talked about sort of hate. Yeah, people will hate read things, but they won't hate pay things, which is a great quote. But it made me think about one of the concerns that I've had, because I've thought about doing newsletters and things like that before. And one of the things that sort of I both like and dislike about writing for like a mass publication is just that people who are encountering your work don't necessarily care who you are, agree with you, you get the kind of feedback. And sometimes that's like just angry people yelling at you. But sometimes it's nuanced that keeps you in check. Like one thing I worry about with people who write newsletters, and not necessarily with you, but more on the sort of the people who are sort of doing this to kind of get away from criticism, because if only your newsletter subscribers are reading your work, then you're kind of insulated from people who might take issue with it. Do you worry? Is that like something you worry about as someone who's now going to be reaching an audience of people primarily who are paying to hear what you have to say?
Yeah, and like particularly because of who's paying, right? It's like, like I mean, I haven't looked at any of this yet, but I sort of assume that a lot of my subscribers will work at the companies that I'm writing for, right? And that creates its own kind of incentive. It's one thing when they're subscribing to you for free, and it's another thing when they're paying your rent. And so, that's just a thing that I'm going to have to kind of keep an eye on. I think actually just by sort of ignoring like who specifically is paying, like that's kind of going to help. But look, I'm doing a model that I like to call the full Ben Thompson, which involves giving away one newsletter for free to everyone every week, right? Part of that idea is just making sure that like my journalism is accessible, so that as I'm publishing stuff that I think is really meaningful, the maximum number of people can see it. But that also means I'm going to be out there in the arena, taking my lumps with everybody else. And I'm also going to be, continuing to share a lot of what I'm learning and thinking on Twitter. And as you know, if you ever express any opinion at all on Twitter, you will hear why you are deeply wrong and should probably die. So I'm not too worried that the criticism will subside entirely.
I have a question based off of, like, again, another interview you did, but where you were kind of saying that the pandemic influenced this a fair amount, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just like, do you think you would have done this if there wasn't a pandemic going on?
I think I might have, but I might not have, like, again, Vox Media, super generous to me. I have no complaints. I think it's really hard though for a media company to let me like working at a media company is just very different at a time when there are no offices and there are no coworkers. And at least for me, there's no business travel. There are no events to attend. There are no like Netflix deals for me to work on, right? And so when you think about like what's a really fun thing to do at a media companies are having trouble offering that, right? And I think a lot of media companies today just look like a Slack channel with some occasional Zooms. And so, once you kind of strip everything else away through no fault of the media company, the world just looks really different, right? And that was sort of my situation.
So this is why I wanted to set up that exact answers to go to the story that you published today, because I feel like the story is a lot like it's based off of internal conversations and leaks, things like that, and we're seeing a lot of leaking in Facebook, but also in other tech companies. And I think Alex Kantrowitz was one who had this comment, but basically said, I wonder if like the working from home stuff like added to what we're seeing. And obviously there's issues with Facebook, frustrating its employees and not doing things that its employees wanted to do. But it feels like the same thing is actually at play, which is when you strip it all away, there's this understanding of like, what is this company, right? When it's not, free catered 3 meals a day, and you're like, so what's happening? And you see the job the way that everyone else outside might see it, or closer to. And I just like, I wonder if you think that's what's behind a lot of the Facebook turmoil right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably never been easier to leak from inside any company to anyone about anything, right? These companies have a lot of defensive measures that they employ, typically to stop people like me from getting these kinds of recordings, and a lot of those tools just aren't available to them right now. I actually expect we're about to see an arms race set off where like you're going to see like, well, I'm not even going to speculate about what you're going to see because I hope it doesn't happen. But I do think that, look, obviously these companies are extremely aware of this. Like at this point, Facebook basically has like a spokeswoman who's just dedicated to like covering leaks full time. but it's sort of interesting. I recently talked to somebody who just left Facebook, sort of asking some of these questions, and they were just kind of saying that they actually thought the company did a really good job of helping to maintain the culture, and that their internal workplace groups where people are sharing pictures of their puppies, and it still kind of had a feel of everyone rowing together. Someone else just messaged me to let me know that Facebook's employee retention has never been higher. These things are have many layers to them. But I think your suspicion is right.
And one thing I've been sort of curious about, because I've been hearing a lot about the kind of internal conversations with Facebook too, and I'm struck by the fact that like Facebook runs on Facebook, like their internal chat system is just like a version of Facebook. It's like it's workplace, like, and it works exactly like consumer Facebook. Like there are groups, there are private conversations, there are big threads that get rowdy, and like things get voted to the top of them, and like it almost is like a microcosm of like the problem as a whole, which is that like in a feed ranked by engagement, like you end up being very, very visible when you're very, very angry or loud or happy or something. Just some extreme emotion always rises to the top. And I'm wondering if you think that has anything to do with what's going on internally there.
So you tweeted this recently, and I thought to myself, I need to find out if this is true, because it was one of those whoa if true kind of tweets. And so I texted two people who had been at Facebook for a long time, and I believe both were no longer there. And I was just like, does this ring true to you? And what both of them said was, and now we're getting into the frickin' real weed. This is the stuff that would never make any story, you guys.
This is the whole point. We are like the reporter's notebook scratchpad for
the true infinite scroll. What they said was, when you're at Facebook, typically you are in a relatively small group that is your team. And in that small group, it is not a particularly busy room, because you're talking about a relatively constrained number of people. So the stuff that gets posted, you're going to see it anyway. In other words, like, you don't have to post like my manager is a dick, like in order for anyone to see it. Now, where I think that it gets a little more interesting, though, is in these Q&As, right? Because this is the sheen of democracy that is now sort of placed onto the monarchy, and people are going to ask questions, and those are going to get upvotes. And I will tell you, it's like, it seems like it was not that long ago when every time like anything would leak out of Facebook, and it almost never happened, there would always be some version of the same line in the story. And it was, in this like cult-like environment, where everyone bows to Lord Zuckerberg. I mean, it really was talked about as the most, sort of loyal, subservient workforce in America. And like at the time, like my sources there weren't that good. Like I had no basis to push back on any of that. So I was kind of like, okay. The craziest thing to me about listening to 16 hours of audio from inside this company is these people are not nice to Mark Zuckerberg.
No, they're dunking on him constantly. They're just
the memes with the sunblock were out of control. I mean, they are coming hard for him.
Wait, can I just say, do you think that, I feel like that's also a little bit new, right? Like, I feel like there is a renewed vigor there, because like I actually am not as well sourced as I was, but was a little bit better sourced, a couple of years ago there. And there was a little more of the sort of reverence, defensiveness. It's still obviously there, and it's kind of divided up. But I also think, like, I don't know, I think something's definitely changed too.
To be clear, yes, I think you are 100% right. I think the employees there are asking smarter questions. I think that the that looting shooting post at the end of May really did turn things upside down. Like people at Facebook will tell you, like that was the moment when Facebook's year changed, was the decision on that post. That was a Mark call. He felt strongly about it. He made that call. And then, we had the racial justice protests in June. And so, part of the piece that I wanted to write was to capture that surge of anger, because it was real and it was something new and different.
Yeah.
That's
Man.
so interesting. Chat says it's Gen Z. That's one comment. I mean,
How much of Facebook's workforce is Gen Z? Like,
I bet like a lot,
how
right?
much? Well, I don't know.
What's the earliest year you can be born and be in Gen Z?
I don't know. We're Googling it now.
It's got to be like 95.
Okay, so like 25-year-olds. Yeah, I mean, like they've had several thousand kids join from right out of college in the past 4 years, right?
Yeah.
1997. So 22 years old.
Okay, so maybe cusp.
Yeah, there's like maybe 3 years, maybe. I don't know.
But I
don't think there's that
interesting that like at a certain size, like every company just becomes like a large, like it like develops message board dynamics, you know, and like, you know, not that we have any experience at that at our employer with internal dissent in internal chats making its way to the public, but I can imagine that at an organization above a certain number of people, there's just like it's a competition for attention in the way that like all social media is.
Well, you know, it's funny because I almost always write about Facebook in terms of the growth of the platform, but the growth of the company is proving just as challenging. This, in addition to having his 3 billion constituents on Earth, Mark has these 50,000 constituents in his company, and they have very different ideas about what he should do. You know, to your Gen Z point, I wound up listening into a lot of like Q&As with interns this summer, and it was really interesting to me the things that they would ask about with respect to content policy. So, for example, they wanted to know why posting misinformation about climate change wasn't considered an imminent threat and violent, which I think makes a lot of sense if you're, you know, planning to spend another 80 years on this planet, but it probably feels less urgent to people who are in their late 30s or early 40s. So those dynamics are starting to surge through the company. And what I wanted to write about in my piece was, you know, instead of like, I sort of feel like the presentation of Mark is always as like, well, he's like this crypto Republican who's like secretly always trying to find ways to like help Donald Trump. And I just sort of wanted to show him in this dynamic of he has like these 50,000 people who want him to do one thing, and then he has these like 3 billion people who want him to do another thing. And he's like going to take a principled stand in the middle of that. But the real story is just like how many forces are tearing this guy in different directions.
Do you think there will be a mass wave of resignations or any, like, what do you think happens if Trump wins and Facebook is seen as being culpable in some sense?
You will see a big wave of resignations. There's like a sort of a new meme on Twitter, which is like to, you know, if you work at Facebook and you criticize it, but you don't quit, you're like a hypocrite. And if you do quit, you're also a hypocrite because you took money from them, you know? But I think the truth is that there are a lot of deeply principled people in Facebook, particularly the people who work on the elections integrity stuff. Like those people are basically civil servants, but they just get like crapped on all day. Okay, I mean, we could go back and forth, but in terms of like the role that they're performing, like it's an intelligence agency, right? It's like a national intelligence agency that we have. They're working really hard at it. And look, if they feel like they sort of accidentally usher in autocracy or they try to stop it and are prevented from doing so, we will hear from it. We do not talk enough about how many people have left this company and say, I feel horrible for what I did. Nobody ever leaves Apple and apologizes, right? These dynamics are unique to Facebook and they will continue.
I feel like we can't make that prediction too, because like I think it's really going to depend on how Facebook interacts on election day, or even like I really, because I mean my nightmare scenario is, you know, it's midnight on the East Coast. Like Trump is well ahead in the popular vote. There's a lot of mail-in and absentee stuff to be counted. Like that is, you know, that always comes in later. He says, I've seen enough. He puts it up. And then, but like, it's not just them having to make a decision on that. It's that all Republican Party gets behind it. Yeah. And then it becomes like, not just newsworthy because the president said it, but it becomes like the de facto position of one of two political parties. Yeah. And then they have to sort of just like, they're in this like horrible, you know, position. They don't do anything. And then like that to me is the nightmare scenario, I feel like.
Completely. I mean, look, something I've been, you know, the Atlantic posted this story today that was like, you know, the Republic has never been in greater danger. Trump is basically saying it's going to go to the Supreme Court no matter what. He, you know, in other words, saying why even bother having the election, right? We're just going to sort of go straight to the Supreme Court, that is not a problem that Facebook can solve. It is a problem that Facebook can play a role in, but something that I'm thinking through as a journalist is like 20 years from now, at my Trump work camp, will I be thinking like, should I really have been spending all of my time writing about Facebook's role in this? Should I have been doing something more about Trump, right? And so again, it's like I really do see my role as understanding the platforms and sort of breaking news and writing analysis about them. But I don't want to become too blinkered because Trump is not a problem that a tech platform can solve.
I had a conversation today with somebody about a lot of this stuff, and they're very, very smart in this world. And they were like, yeah, that's one node. Like if Facebook has a flawless night, the chance for like absolute constitutional crisis and chaos is extremely heavy. Or if all the social platforms have a fantastic night. And it's just like, Adrian just said Trump is a platform. Trump is a platform. That's a column. Write it.
I'll race you.
I mean, he has a mobile app that's like apparently pretty successful, right? It's like, Kevin, haven't you written about this sort of like bizarre closed universe where they do like a nightly live stream with like Trump world characters and all of it?
I haven't, but I should. I mean, the media empire is really like this is basically, from what I can tell, their insurance policy against like getting deplatformed is like, we're going to build up our own world.
It is. It's also though not as popular as one might think. There's a little bit of smoke and mirrors happening there because it was supposed to be like the main feature of it. It was built around rallies, and it was like that was going to be the main thing, and then you were going to get into it in the rally, and that was going to sort of be your like portal into like, oh, there's a lot of good news here. But I think like there's a lot overblown about like the Trump app because of that. Anyway,
that makes sense.
Do you think we spend too much time as the media talking about Facebook relative to other social platforms?
I think, look, I mean, it's the biggest and most consequential in a lot of ways, but I do worry that Facebook has just sort of become a blank canvas for everyone to project all of their emotions onto. So like when I'm reading about Facebook, I'm always looking for the person who's saying the most specific thing, right? It's like talk to me about a specific group, a specific number of followers, talk to me about a video that went legitimately viral, talk to me about a post that was legitimately seen by a huge number of people, right? Like that's where I want to anchor the discussion. And if you do that, you'll find that you actually might have less to say about Facebook than you think, right? Like, I think a lot of people have generally bad feelings about social media in general. Maybe they're causing depression. We need to continue to investigate all that stuff. We need a lot more research than we have. But when it comes to like my own writing and criticism, I'm just trying to find like the person saying the specific thing and not just one more person typing Facebook is bad into a box.
Not that anyone would do that. That would be a bad thing. Yeah. I sort of wonder. I was daydreaming the other day about like, what if I just never wrote about Facebook again? Like that would be great. Like, do you feel like there's sort of we're gonna years from now look back and say like we should have been focusing on this platform instead of Facebook? Like, what do you think the spotlight being so much on this one company and this one platform? Like, what do you think we're missing? What interesting things are you paying attention to that we should be paying more attention to?
I mean, one area where my thinking has really evolved is I used to think that you should break up the platforms on the basis that they would just be better if they're smaller. And I do think that there are reasons to want things that are small and more manageable. But at the same time, you look at like some of the most terrifying movements we had. It's like, look where QAnon started. Like it was on just a terrible message board, right? That's an internet problem. And one of the things that I try to do sometimes in my column is try to write about the difference between internet problems and platform problems, right? Like to me, platform problems are mostly about what companies choose to amplify, either wittingly or unwittingly through the sort of recommendations that they develop. Internet problems are just people can find each other online. And so maybe we need to be having more of a conversation about people finding each other online and how we deal with that. But again, like these things have to happen in parallel because I'm really just as worried about those recommendation algorithms.
Can I push back on that though? Because I mean, to me, Facebook's always been the mechanism for the people to find each other. And I know that that's obvious, but there's something remarkably different about QAnon's behavior in Q drops on 4chan, and also the context with which it's surrounded by. It's the same thing now. I think part of why Q is not actually a huge deal in himself is like it's surrounded by like horrible anime porn and crime scene photos all the time. It's just like, no. And we were talking earlier with Lily like about sanitizing it and whatever. And I think it plays that role. Like, and the thing I can't seem to get past, which is an internet problem, not a Facebook problem, it's both, but it's mostly an internet problem. Is like I don't think this many humans should be connected in this way at this intensity. It's probably bad. But Facebook is the conduit. I find I struggle unwinding that. So I don't know that I like. I don't know where one starts and the other begins.
Yeah, and I don't know. Go ahead, Casey.
I think that's really fair. Something that I always try to project is an air of real uncertainty around these things, right? Like I think Facebook is too big for me to understand. And one reason why I write 4 columns a week is because I sort of feel like only by taking that many cuts at it are you ever going to like approximate the truth about something. So like Charlie, I agree with you. It plays a huge role, and it plays a role that we don't understand. And more importantly, it plays a role that Facebook doesn't understand, right? And so I think that level of scrutiny is super important. I just think that like we should do our best to convey a spirit of like open-mindedness about that inquiry. And it just becomes harder as like the bad things pile up, right? Like at a certain point, you've just seen enough bad things happen either on Facebook or because of Facebook that like you write it off. And like, certainly if you're an average citizen, like do that. That's your right. Like go find something else to do with your time. But I just feel like as a reporter, that's never an option that I want to take. Like I just can't afford to write anything off because I have to keep looking and I have to be open to being surprised.
And I just want to clarify, like, I don't think that we should just say we shouldn't all be connected this way. Like, bye. I just mean like I find myself, like all of us, we've all been writing about this for like a decade, and basically like since 2014, I would say 2015, like writing about it in a specific way of like the negative effects. And I just feel like now I'm butting up against very like elemental arguments, which is like I don't know how to jump outside of that box. And I think you're right then to look in the small view, but yeah, I can't tell where the internet problem ends and the Facebook problem begins hardly ever anymore.
Yeah, and it's like that is the classic like technique that Facebook uses to like distract people from its own machinations. It's like, well, we're just technology, and like people got mad at Gutenberg about the printing press too, but like that was going to happen anyway. And I actually like I was talking about this with someone a while ago. Like I actually don't know if like Facebook had never been built, if like something like Facebook would have emerged, where like everyone in the world is using their real names, is like on the same social network, which is also the same, which is also the place you post videos and message your friends and form social groups and watch content and consume news. It's like I actually don't know that it's kind of a natural law that something like Facebook would have emerged anyway had Mark Zuckerberg not started it. I don't know. Is that?
I sort of think that social networks like were going to be a naturally occurring feature of the internet. And I think if what you say is true, then Facebook wouldn't have acted in such anti-competitive ways, right? Like if Facebook was this like magical formula that had just been executed flawlessly, do you really need to like copy stories so many times before you get it right? Like, I think this is like one of the big differences I think between internal and external perception of Facebook is like Mark Zuckerberg does not think that he's won. Like Mark Zuckerberg thinks that he's always just one app away from seeing his civilization disappear. And it's easy for us to be like, well, that's ridiculous. Like, look at how resilient this thing is. But look, in the story that I wrote today, this is like no, I don't know, but maybe people have tweeted about this. I haven't seen anybody tweet about it, but this is fascinating to me. They banned TikTok in India, right? A week later, do you know how many more messages were sent on Instagram in India? 214 million. Okay. So there is a zero-sum game that is being played on these apps. And so the paranoia is at least to some degree justified.
There is a question in the chat that I can't scroll back for whatever reason now, but it spoke to this a little about like, why do you think TikTok's had such a rosy reception in the press comparatively to other things?
Yeah.
And I'm just, oh, there it is. Ooh, you put it up on the screen.
I can't show the whole thing. It's too long, but I can read it. It says, why do you think TikTok is enjoying such a rosy reception by the press when it seems squarely in the camp of a platform problem, as Casey describes, yet no one really cares about it in the press, at least nowhere close to the same fervor as Facebook? And then I think the reason is because there's no Mark figure to hate, but that's a separate issue. So like, yeah, how do you weigh that?
So a couple things. One is platforms always have the easiest time in the first couple years when all anybody is really doing there is singing or dancing, right? So TikTok, moment of reckoning is going to come. Two, I encourage you to read the interface because I regularly am featuring some of the great journalism that is being done mostly by other people right now, taking a look at the sort of posts that are spreading, right? Like there is a right wing on TikTok. They've just put out their transparency report yesterday where they reported on all of the videos that they're taking down. That they took down over 100 million videos in the first half of this year. One thing I will say about them is that they are cognizant of these issues and have put more in place sooner in the lifespan of the company than any platform I have ever covered. And so to the extent that they're having a slightly better reception in the press, part of it might actually be that they tried, right? So again, I think you can't have a network like this without having an endless series of controversies over the bad post that stayed up or the good post that came down. But you can also try to make it better, and TikTok's doing a good job.
I also feel a little bit too that, you know, just like the simple nature of like being mostly algorithm based and like not having that same, you know, follower mentality of all the other, like, I think it just takes away some of that other stuff. It's just like it just seems they turn the screw one extra bit and people just haven't caught on. That's what I feel like.
That's a really great point. They sort of separate you from the things that you're following in a way that makes it an inefficient mechanism for just spreading idiocy, right? Like what's going to happen to most people on TikTok is they're going to get lucky one time and have one viral TikTok and then like maybe never again. And, you know, whereas on Twitter, you could just be a bad faith ideologue and just post hoaxes and lies all day and acquire 400,000 followers and, you know, turn it into a Fox News gig, right? And like, that's not going to happen on TikTok, assuming they don't change too much.
Well, or unless the influencers get red pilled,
Sure.
and then the whole, I really feel the fate of the country is in Charlie D'Amelio's hands.
If Charlie D'Amelio goes QAnon, it's
we're
over.
done. We're done. Like, I'm just gonna pack it the fuck up, and we're just like, I'm move further into the woods than I already live in.
On that note, Casey, thank you so much for joining us. Everyone should go subscribe to Platformer. Tell them where they can find it. Also,
just
put the link in chat.
Platformer.news into your browser. You can subscribe there. Thanks for considering it. And again, even if you don't want to pay, you can still get at least one free edition every week and help me figure out maybe some cool new stuff to do in journalism. So this, by the way, this was super fun. Your questions were on point. The discussion was good. Like for a throwaway Twitch show, you guys might be onto something here.
Who are you calling throwaway?
Yeah,
This is-
seriously. all my eggs are in this basket right now.
Oh, good. Okay.
That's it.
We're doing Fortnite 1v1s next week. Come back and challenge us then, if you dare.
I do dare, and I will.
Okay. Thank you, Casey.
Thanks, man.
Wow, Charlie, what a ride. We did it.
We didn't like totally fuck it up, right?
I think I would give us a 7 out of 10 for execution and a 9 out of 10 for our guests. I think they were amazing.
Yeah. Oh, as always, we're always going to be dragging this down comparatively.
Yeah. But I'm excited to do this again. I need to go write a piece, but I will catch you soon. But you're check in. Like, you're doing okay? Things are okay?
We're okay. We're fine. It's raining now in the west, so that's or not in the west. I'm
jealous of your natural backdrop there. I've just got the Windows XP.
This is actually a portal to Narnia. If you just jump through. No, but one thing I want to say is anyone who's watching or listened or whatever, just give us some feedback, like what you want to see, because we don't know what the fuck we're doing. So
I have no idea.
So,
we're winging it. Can we say like and subscribe? Is that a thing?
I mean, why not? Our careers depend on it. We need
I've
to
always
eat.
wanted to say that.
We need to eat.
Yeah, I guess there's no like, but subscribe. We're gonna try to like figure out emotes and
Yeah.
and notifications and all that good stuff. We're gonna maybe have a banner next time or something. Who knows? We could go crazy with some art. Who knows where this could lead? But I'm psyched. Thank you, Charlie, and I'll see you soon.
Good vibes only. See ya.
Bye.